And we'll get started a little bit late. I do apologize. So call to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And can we start with roll call, please?
Tony Castlefort.
Here.
Tony Castlefort. Brian Schultz.
Present.
Glenn Patterson. Louis Worthy.
Here.
Mark Taylor. Here. Mike Barton.
Here.
Terrence Concannon. Jeff Anderson. Katrin Phillips.
Present.
Kaylin Hirsch. Jim Dolan. Damon Anderson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
We'll now have our call to the public. We will have an open call to the public for citizens wishing to address the board on issues within the jurisdiction of the board. Your comments must be limited to 3 minutes or less. If you wish to address an item already on today's agenda, you should wait until that item is announced for the public hearing. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the board may respond to criticism made by those who address the board, may ask staff to review the matter or ask the matter to be placed on a future agenda. However, board members cannot discuss or take legal action on matters not already on the agenda. I'll now open the call to the public. And seeing we do not have anybody for the open call to the public, we'd like to bring up I guess it's August 4th minutes, since we haven't had a meeting for a little while. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion. And I'll second that.
All right, so that's Mark Taylor and Glenn Patterson. I'll now turn it over to Damon Anderson for the Communications Announcements Airport Board Supervisor Report.
How are y'all doing? I'm going to try to keep this a little short tonight. Mainly just talk about the construction of the taxiway. It's definitely some hindrances and growing pains going on out there with that, but they are on track. They're doing a good job. I know a lot of people see they're kind of in the test phase right now, doing some test strips of the asphalt, checking compaction, mat, things like that. And to the layman, it looks like they're kind of hit and miss all over the place, but they're doing a good job. They're on track. Not expecting any more runway closures until after the first of the year at that. But we're roughly 80% into the first phase of the project, roughly another 23 days, and then then we'll have the next two phases. The next phase will be another 90-day phase, and then we'll have the small 45 days up at the north end of the runway when that's done. Hopefully it all stays on track and weather stays good. Another thing I want to mention is talking about construction is we are in the middle of designing the runway rehabilitation, and that's expected to go out to bid in April of this year, open bids in May, and then hopefully they'll start that construction of that project in July. And I bring that up now because that's going to be a full closure of the airport, and it could be up to possibly a couple of months. Well, I hope it's not going to be that long. It depends on what the core samples come back saying, how much infrastructure, if they need to do a full reconstruct or if they can get away with a mill and overlay. So that'll kind of depend on that. But as of right now, we're planning for a 60-day construction phase. So it's a lot of planning going to be involved with that for everybody. And that's all I have for a report for right now.
Thank you, Damon. We'll now move on to our public hearing. 7.1 is a discussion on possible action to amend City Code 9.16.160, aircraft and parachute landings and takeoffs, to clarify landing and takeoffs and to allow commercial parachuting and hot air balloon with a permit.
So I'll say a few things here, I guess. This was brought to council a few weeks back, and it had to do with a helicopter operator on the island, as well as some skydivers that have come to town, and they all kind of have this desire to operate in and off the island. And they had a lot of people come to council, brought it up, and needless to say, they put it on the agenda to go before city council. And since it's going to go before council, they asked me to give it a looking over and bring it to y'all for y'all's input on it and discussion. And so that's what we're here to do, is discuss any of this. Y'all see what the proposed code is. That I hope everybody got that as well. Let's see. It should be the bottom one. And, they had a lot of people stood up for the helicopter operator, but we had tenfold that in phone calls, is what I was told, to City Hall with complaints of the noise and things of that nature as well. And so I'm not going to recommend to allow that to happen necessarily. But this is what I was given to present. It's the way it would read now would be: no aeronautical activity, including rotorcraft, gliders, weight shift controls, powered parachutes, airplanes, airships, or persons shall take off or land upon any public or private property within the city unless authorized by special event permit. This section does not apply to emergency landings, takeoffs, medical and emergency helicopters, and military and National Guard personnel or aircraft. Aeronautical commercial activities for parachutes and hot air balloons shall be allowed within the city only when authorized by a city-issued permit. And so that last section is probably the biggest part that they're doing, is they're going to create a new permit, draft up a new permit for commercial operations to go on with the city. They want to be parachute and friendly, the same as they wanted to be hot air balloon friendly. But if you're going to do it for commercial activity, then you should, get a permit for that. And that's kind of where it stands. Like I say, it's open for discussion.
Shouldn't we have something about saying that you can go on an airport since it's public property? I mean, shouldn't it say, it shall take off and land on any public primary with the exception of an airport within the city unless authorized, because, that's public property. Some lawyer is going to go, hey, you can't take off unless you have a permit.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
I mean, the airport's understood, but it's not. If they're going to put it in writing, they need to put an airport in there.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I had that conversation, but this is where it came.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding that it's going to prohibit hot air balloons from launching in like the city parks and stuff?
Only if they're doing it for commercial business. I mean, it's still, if you're going to jump out of an airplane or fly a hot air balloon as recreation for yourself and not a commercial activity, then you're free to do that if you have permission from the property owner.
And it's still not forbidding it. It allows them to get permitted.
Not to hot air balloons or parachutes, only if it's commercial.
Correct.
Yeah.
So during the balloon festival, when all those people are giving people balloon rides, they're going to all have to have permits from the city.
I'm guessing so. Yeah, if they're doing that as a business, you bet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Be my understanding. And so what City Council is looking for is our discussion and our recommendation to go with this to City Council. And so that's.
Do you know if that couple still wants to land their parachutes on the island?
Yes, they do, and they do, and they don't. They have actually come up with some other land out north of town, which is great, and they're going to create a drop zone there, and that'll be the majority of where they're going to do their drops. But in the busy season, if they can and are allowed to do on the island, then they're going to take on that just for business.
Have they still indicated they wouldn't mind taking off from the island?
From the island?
Yeah.
the skydivers won't be. I mean, they're going to have to leave from the airport
Okay,
regardless.
because when we had this discussion out at the airport, they were very interested in being able to operate off the island.
Yeah, I think it may have been a misunderstanding, but I don't think they were ever intending on leaving the island, you know, taking off from there. They would just strictly want to land. And then, you know, there's still other, you know, obstacles for that as well. As that state land out there, we'll have to make sure that that's all allowed through the city's lease that they have with the state as one of the uses.
Well, that, and I don't think the neighbors, when they bought property out there, thought they'd be having an airport in their backyard.
That's correct, right? And I mean, I have to agree with it. It's very, very possible for it to turn into a problem once you allow one person, the more come. I mean, and I did come from Sedona, and so I know what that's about.
And excuse my ignorance, but what part of the city or what department in the city would be issuing those permits? Who would they be talking to?
Whoever's doing the special event permits is right now, do you know, is that any of the permits you've had to fill out? Do you know who that would be?
I'm saying, are those people that are familiar with, you know, maybe size of balloons or, you know, avionic operation?
Yeah, and like I say, this new permit at the bottom, I mean, it's going to be a whole new thing that's going to be brought to life, where hopefully they'll have our input on a lot of that and bring it to the airport, you know, for some.
I don't think there's a process in place yet. I think that's
Correct.
something that they're going to.
It's probably going to be through Parks and Rec, but there may not be anything for a while until they decide.
Now, where's this drop zone north of the city? How many miles?
I'm not actually positive about that. He's going to be here tomorrow, and I'm actually going to take a trip out there with him to look at it tomorrow to find out.
Yeah, because that would be my concern.
I think that's kind of a separate issue. I mean, for what we're
Correct.
looking at and voting on here as a recommendation to the council is just the change to the ordinance
Correct.
To read. And I appreciate Mark's input on the airport being added, and I appreciate Damon trying to do that, but it sounds like they like the code, and I'm guessing the city attorney's already looked at that and she's happy with the code.
As far as I know, they're okay with the language.
I would make a motion that we recommend to the city council to adopt an amended 9.16.160 as read or as written, as was read a while ago, as a recommendation from the Airport Advisory Board. I mean, if nobody's objecting to
I
it.
would second that.
Do we have any objections? And we'll go forward and we'll ask.
It is a call the public, right, for discussion.
And as Damon just stated, this is a call to the public. Do we have any input from anybody in the audience? Okay, with that being said, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll go forward with that recommendation. Future discussion items.
I will make a note on future discussion items if we need to lay it down on this particular time for the next agenda. But we want to really be able to address public at the airport who ask us about the RFPs coming out. So could you give us an update on that, since it just needs to be, where's it at briefly, I guess?
Sure.
Because if it's a future discussion item, it's always a discussion item, right? So it's not really, I mean, it's going to come up every single time until we get some resolution on some hangar stuff. So,
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other items? Okay, with that being said, future meetings, we're looking at our next meeting Wednesday, January 19th, followed by Wednesday, February 16th of 2022. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved. Motion to adjourn, sir.
And a second?
Second.
And that would be Mark Taylor and Glenn Patterson. And everybody have a happy and safe holiday season, and see you hopefully back in January.
Excellent.